Well, Razorback fans, we're one day away, but we need to talk about Razorback football and exactly where they rank in the pecking order. Are they a top 25 program? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday as we are officially one day away from Razorback football, which we'll talk about that just like we always have. And we'll also get into some of the things for the UAPB game on Thursday that are really need to be important and discussed and everything. But, you know, I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm getting to the point to where I have been for a while now, but just more and more, I'm done talking about this stuff, man. I'm done talking about what could be, what should be. I'm done talking about who could do what, who could do when. You know, just it's getting to the point to where it's just we want games, man. We want to see this team out on the field. We want games, and we want to continue to have games, and we want to be pissed off at them, and we want to be happy at them. Like, we want to go above and beyond and go crazy with it and all of that. And we're getting there. We're almost there. But you know, I was thinking about Arkansas this year and thinking about, you know, some of the previous years where, you know, it may be hard to imagine it and crazy to think about it. But folks, did you know, like, you remember Arkansas was the number 8 team in the country at one point in time? Back in 2021. They were the number 8 team in the country. And they lost to Georgia and got smoked. And I could be mistaken, but Arkansas was also number 8 in the country start of 2022 up until they lost to Texas A&M. Like, they were that good. And, of course, the A&M game really just killed it, and they never really have been the same since. But isn't it amazing to think about that there was, at one point in time, here recently, that people considered Arkansas to be a top 10 football team. Even if it was just for a small portion of time, even if it was for game week, whatever it was. The fact that it was number 8 really felt good. And I miss that feeling. I miss being able to talk trash about it and, like, hold your head high about it. But the thing is that looking at it pretty generally over the past decade, Arkansas has been a pretty average to below average program. I hate to admit it, but it's true. You know, Arkansas has only had 1 year in the past 10 years where they've had a winning record in SEC play. They've done it once, and that was in 2015. They've had 2 seasons of 0-1 seasons, 0-8 in conference play under Chad Morris. They've had 2 years of 1-win seasons in the SEC. One with Brett Bielema, one with Sam Pittman. They've had a season with only 2 wins in 2014. Had a few seasons with only 3 wins, like 2016. And even in 2022. And then the 4 wins come into play, and, you know, 4-4, going 500 in the SEC. Arkansas's done that too. But the thing is that the last 10 years have not been overly kind to Razorback football. You can't change your past. You can't do anything differently there. You just got to own it. It sucks, but you got to own it. But the thing is like, for Arkansas and looking at the football program, I get asked this question all the time of what's the expectation for the program? You know, in the SEC, as competitive as it is, what's their role in this? And I've always thought about it because, you know, it depends on the direction you take it. Do you believe that it would be a certain amount of wins per year, and that would be what the expectation is? Could it be an actual ranking, where you rank at the end of the season? Is that what your expectation should be? Where you rank in the SEC each and every year? Like, is that the expectation? You can go crazy with it, but here's the thing. To me, I believe Arkansas should be a top 25 program. Now, a lot of you may think I'm crazy. A lot of you may think I'm just blowing smoke, and that's fine. But think about it. Arkansas, for the most part, has a top 25 recruiting class, mostly. Sometimes they've even gotten higher than that. A lot of times they've even had top-tier transfer classes, too. Done really well with that. A lot of times they've been really good in certain games, played up to their competition. But if they won't win the games, then it doesn't really matter in the end, which we all understand. But when I'm looking at the entire landscape of college football and what those programs have to offer, what those programs are set up as, and where they're set up as, like, I don't see any reason why Arkansas can't be a top 25 program. Now, would their top 25 ranking be 25th? Maybe, probably. It's very, very borderline there, top 25. But I believe that's where they should be. And a lot of you will probably say, how can you believe, how can you have that much confidence about Arkansas being in the top 25 as a program when the last 10 years they haven't really been that at all? Well, because sometimes it's not just about, okay, well, what was the last 10 years about? And then that decides what type of program you are. Well, let me rephrase that. It decides what the program you are, but it doesn't decide what the program you can be. There was a time where Razorback basketball went through such a lull. Every team in the SEC made the Sweet 16 since the last time Arkansas had. People might forget about it. Arkansas, up until 2021, had gone 25 years without making the Sweet 16. Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, just to name a few, South Carolina. Those programs that you think you're better than, and you are better than, had more success in the NCAA tournament than you for 25 years. Did that mean that your program was worse than those others because they had more success in the tournament? Maybe to some of the trolls, yes, but legitimately, logically, did any of you ever believe that those other SEC programs that had gone further in the NCAA tournament in that 25-year span, that they were better than you? Hope not, because they weren't, and they aren't. And it's the same way with Razorback football. Like, people might forget about this, but the Razorback football program had actually played in the SEC title game 3 times. Now, they haven't since 2006, but they played in it 3 times. Ole Miss has never played in it. Mississippi State played in it once, and honestly, it should have been you playing in it, but could have kept you from being in it 4 times. Texas A&M has never played in it. So to say that you're not a program that belongs in the SEC is just ridiculous. I see programs like Ole Miss. I see programs like Mississippi State. I see programs like Missouri. Programs that are maybe on the same playing field or whatever, but they're having success. So what's stopping you? What's keeping you? Is it a coach? Is it an NIL thing? Like, what is it? I mean, you're going to have your opinion on it. But my thing is that I refuse to allow anyone to say or to dictate or to defend the fact that it's like with Arkansas, I'm going to continue to believe that they are a top 25 program, whether you like it or not. They are. And they got to get back to that. And I think they can, and I think they will. But when? Boy, isn't that the ultimate question? We'll talk a little bit about some of the important things to happen or not happen on Thursday against UAPB in Little Rock. We'll talk about that here in a second, but stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, I got to tell you about our friends over at the Gametime app. A lot of you are probably going to be looking for some tickets this year, right? Maybe some of you are going to try to go to the Razorback football game against UAPB in Little Rock, and you're like, well, we'll see. Well, you're probably going to be kind of trying to figure it out, and then you're going to decide, all right, let's go to the game. Well, when you decide that, you need to make sure that you're getting the best tickets for the best price, and that's what the Gametime app is going to be able to provide for you. You can go to not only just sporting events like the Razorback game, but you can also go into concerts. You can go into comedy shows, theater shows, all of that. It's a great deal. And with the Gametime app, you'll be able to have a feature, which is my favorite feature, of the all-in pricing. Because once you turn on that feature, it'll give you all the money that's up front that you're going to owe instead of having all these little hidden fees that you're not so sure about and everything. It's that simple. So also, you get great seat views right there on your phone. And with the app, you get to see exactly before you buy the tickets what your seat and what your view is going to look like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Gametime app by downloading the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. We're also here on the Locked On Razorbacks broadcast, brought to you by FanDuel. You heard us talk a lot about FanDuel here on the podcast. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just go over and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So Thursday, it's amazing that this game is on a Thursday still. I'm not going to get used to that. It's so strange, but I'm going to love it, and I know a lot of you will too. But here's the thing, is like we always have different approaches and different mindsets of what we want to see in a game like this. I probably will talk a little bit about it more on the podcast tomorrow, doing a little preview action, but overall, I'm like, what do I want to see? What do I want to see from the Razorbacks? What do I want to see from certain players or certain coaching or certain plays or certain whatever? And we could talk about that till we're blue in the face. But to me, there's only one thing that actually matters in this whole situation, in this whole game. One thing and one thing only. For all that is holy, please stay healthy. Healthy. That's the biggest thing. Stay healthy. I cannot tell you how many times seasons had been deterred or decided or determined, or at least impacted, by injuries that happened randomly in game one against some random opponent. You got to get your players reps. You do. You got to get your guys out there. You got to get them against live action. You got to, even if it's UAPB, you got to get that going. You got to have that. I respect it and understand it. But you also don't want to be crazy with it. You want to be smart with it. And I've always felt this way about Arkansas. Arkansas is never going to be a team that's good enough that can afford losing a starter. Now, I remember Nick Saban, when he was at Alabama, he made the joke that, he's like, all of y'all, just think that anytime someone gets hurt, we just crap out another player and just insert them. And it's like, yeah, that's what you do, because you're Alabama and every one of your players are 5 stars and 4 stars. Like, your special teams players are high-level 4-star players. Like, yes, that's what you do. I think Georgia's to that place. I think in a team like LSU could be at that place. Ohio State could be at that place. Like, there's certain programs where Yeah, if they lose a starter, it's going to have an impact because there's a reason why they're starting. But it's not going to completely change and impact their entire season. Arkansas can have that issue. And I look at the starting lineup, and even though you got deep position groups, you can't afford anyone to get injured. I was talking with Chris Gordy of the Locked On SEC podcast, and he was like, I'm trying to see of who has the deepest, what's the deepest position for Arkansas, and I want to say tight end. And I was like, well, that's a pretty good assumption. I mean, the tight end position has been pretty important, and they got some good players there. But then I was like, okay, but here's the thing. If they lost Luke Haas, I like Ty Washington. I like Marquise Gums. Like that's all fine. But if they lost Luke Haas with an injury, that's a major, major deal. That's a huge impact. Plain and simple. What if they lost Jaquindon Jackson? They got some running backs in there, but if they lost him, it's a huge impact. Any of the offensive linemen, I mean, they're not even going to have Patrick Kutas playing in this game. That's a big impact. Defensively, same thing. So the point is, with all the stuff that goes on and all the talk about what goes on and everything, it's all well, good, great, grand, and wonderful. But the only thing I care about at any point in time has got to be staying healthy. You have to stay healthy. Please, for all that is holy, stay healthy. Please, for all that is holy, don't overdo it. Don't have anything weird happen. Just try to get out of there with a clean bill of health and make it happen. Please, that is all I ask. Makes me nervous and scared to even talk about it, but it's the truth. And we'll talk more about being one day away from Razorback football here in just a second, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, we know that 5-hour energy is going to give you the energy that you need because, listen, if you're going to go to these games, these Razorback games, especially the one on Thursday night, you're going to need to take a little bit of extra energy. You're going to have to get through the game a little bit. You're going to be so tired from the work week and everything. Well, don't worry about it. When you take 5-hour energy, it's going to get you through and power you through that game. Maybe even the tailgating if you guys are going to be doing that too. So do it. And even if it's watching your sports, you can do that way. But also before your workout too. And this is something that I've really found that anytime that you're trying to go to the gym and it's tough to stay motivated, it's tough to be like, hey, I want to get out there and go. You need that extra motivation. Well, 5-hour energy shots, part of your lifestyle, get you the energy boost that you need to get fit. We all know that sometimes you don't want to go to the gym, but they're going to help you out with that too. It's phenomenal because it has zero sugar in a convenient portable size, and it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and there is a flavor for everybody. You got to try them all. And on the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered straight to your door. It's that easy. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy products today, you can use my promo code of LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with any other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders either. So just go to 5hourenergy.com today. We also have a very special sponsor here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, and a company that I feel very strong about when it comes to all things apparel, and it is Home Field Apparel. Folks, we know that college football, college sports in general in the state of Arkansas mean more than anything to us. It's the number one game in town. It's the number one show in town. And we all love wearing our apparel. But if you're like me, as much as the apparel that they have now is fine, you have a little bit of a love for the vintage stuff. You know, the old Razorback logo, the hog running through the A, or the hog leaning on the A, or the slobber hog, or whatever. You're always going to have a little bit of a love for that, and I understand because I do too. Well, that's what Home Field is able to get for you. They have some of the coolest and greatest vintage throwback apparel that you'll see from the Razorbacks. And they got it from different shirts, different styles, different colors, different everything. So you have to check it out for yourself. It's truly the best. If you're a big vintage person, vintage Razorback person like me, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So go over to homefieldapparel.com and check out all they have and enter in promo code PIG24. That's PIG24. Enter that promo code in. Tell them I sent you over there, and you can get the great apparel from Home Field Apparel. Appreciate all of you listening always to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast for it. And get the season started the right way with getting you some great home field apparel. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So, man, one day away. We played this game so many times. And now I want to play it a little bit more too. One day, just one. So who's the number one that comes to mind for you? There's been quite a few, and some of them have been better than others. You know, you'll probably forget that KJ Jefferson was actually number one. And honestly, he is going to be one that's going to be hard to take out from being the number one in my mind. Some of your old school people may say JJ Metters, which 100% is a great one. Totally caught that touchdown pass against Alabama. Some of you may say, of all the players that you could throw in there, some of them have been great, some of them not so much. I always think of Marquell Wade. I don't know if y'all remember him, who basically killed that poor Vanderbilt punt returner and got ejected from the game. I mean, that guy got destroyed. But yeah, he was the number one. So I'll think of him a lot of times too. It's been some random defensive players that would have that number. And you know what's weird is, like, during the Houston Nut days, there wasn't really a number one that stood out during that time. Not saying there wasn't one, because there was, but just there's none of them that really come to mind or really stood out to me. But I don't know. Like, I mean, is KJ Jefferson the best player to wear number one? He might be. He might be. I know you don't want to hear it, but he might be. So we'll have to wait and see if that changes. But yeah, just one day away, folks. It's here. It's game day eve, baby. It's game day eve. Let's just get it going. Let's just have a game. Stop talking about it. Let's just have a game. It's going to be great. Appreciate each and every one of you listening and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.